Hello, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. Today we're going to be testing out the new NARS Afterglow Tempting eyeshadow palette. So this just launched from NARS. This is available now on their website. This has a 12-month shelf life and is made in Canada, which is pretty standard for the NARS eyeshadow palettes. Now, I do absolutely love the NARS formula, so I do love to review every single palette they have. And they also came out with a new Air Matte Ultra Lip Tint, so I did pick up one shade of the lip tint as well, and I picked up the shade Dolce Vita. This is a pretty well-known shade for NARS. I do have this shade in one of their super shiny lip balm formulas, but the lip tint did kind of get my attention, so we're going to try that today as well. But this is what the inner palette looks like. It reminds me quite a bit of the Orgasm Rising palette, except the new one is a bit of a softer pink and has gold lettering. So this is what the palette looks like. I do think this is a really pretty color story. I am excited to see a purple in here. I do love a good purple, and I think it definitely does make it stand out a little bit from some of their other color stories. Like I said, I absolutely love NARS eyeshadow formula, but a lot of their color stories do end up looking very similar. So we will get into some swatches. I'm going to create two different looks, and then I will show you some comparisons toward the end. So going left to right, we have Love Me Not, which is like a very icy white. Then we have Sweet Nothing, Unwritten, Haze, Feeling It, No Lies, Take You There, Honeymooner, and Follow Me. So it very much does look like a neutral palette with a pop of purple, but we will get into that. I don't necessarily mind, so we're going to get into that. We're going to play with this. And I should also mention this does retail for $49, which is the standard for these NARS palettes. This is available on the NARS website. I don't think it is available on NARS Canada just yet. But let me zoom you in and we can create two different looks. All right, hello. So I think I just made a quick decision. I'm going to turn this into a 3 looks because looking at this, I could probably go with these warmer browns, but I could also go with some of these pinks, but I also want to go with the purples. So I think I'm going to make 3 looks. That works for me. So let's just hop right into it. I do have my eyes primed with my Alter Ego eyeshadow base and set it down with some powder. And for the very first look, I'm going to start with this shade right here, and I'm going to start. It is quite pigmented, and then just start sort of blending that up and into the crease a little bit. Nothing new here. I'm always so excited to see NARS come out with a new eyeshadow palette. I know they do get some heat because they don't release a lot of unique color stories, but they're always very pretty and their formulas are so beautiful. And what I like about their formula is that they are kind of a thinner formula, and the mattes are very, very silky and just very, very simple and easy to blend. The shimmers can definitely be a little bit more, the shimmers tend to be a little bit more on the dry side, but they're always very beautiful. But I just love this formula. I think this is a formula that is just going to be so universal and it's going to work well for everyone, especially those who like more everyday makeup or maybe who have more textured eyelids just because of the way it's formulated. Okay, I'm just going to go into a little bit of this bottom shade right here, and I'm not going to go in too intensely because these are very pigmented, and I'm just going to add some depth on that outer corner. And as always, these mattes blend so beautifully into one another. I just feel like it always takes absolutely no work at all to blend them together. Just going into this shade right here. I really wasn't sure if NARS was coming out with an eyeshadow palette for a holiday at all because they came out with their cheek palettes and those were beautiful. But normally they come out with them at the same time. I was very, very excited to see this as well. And I don't even think this got leaked. I had no idea this was coming out. I think I'm going to go into that middle shade on the top row. I'm going to pick it up with a finger though. The NARS shimmers do work perfectly fine with a brush, but I think fingers just always give the best payoff when it comes to shimmers, in my opinion. You can definitely wet your brush as well. This is just what I prefer to do. I did go in with a brush on that second shade just to see if I could still make it work, and I definitely did. I just like to test them out sometimes. I might take a little bit of that super icy white right in that top corner, just for the inner portion. That is super icy. Okay, I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, so we have a super simple, easy, everyday look. Let's get into the other eye. We're gonna play with some more of the pinky tones. And then for look number 3, that's when I'll show you the purple, because that's what I wanna wear for the rest of the day, even though it's already evening when I'm filming. So I think I'm gonna actually start with this shade at the top again, because it did end up being a nice transition for some of the browns I wanna use. They're just so easy to work with. At the time of filming this, the Sephora sale is still ongoing. I don't know if this palette's going to come to Sephora or if it will be there before the sale ends. But I got thinking, the last 2 years, they did a savings for all event in December where everybody got 20% off. It was a one-time use, but everyone could shop it and get 20% off. I got thinking about that today because I wanted to place another last-minute order, and then I thought, Christy, don't you dare. And then I also remembered that they've been doing that sale, so I'm definitely going to wait for that. Okay, going into that deeper shade on the bottom again. Again, I'm loving the mattes. I always love the NARS matte formula. Next, I'm going to go into that pink on the bottom, and I'm going to grab that one with a finger. This pink, though, is in pretty much every single NARS eyeshadow palette. It is very pretty, but like I said, this shade, if you have NARS palettes already, you definitely have this shade. I'm going to go into this more satin leaning shade here on the bottom. And I'm going to place this between that shimmer and that outer corner matte, just to sort of blend them into each other a little bit. That also gave us a little bit more depth, but I'm also now very intrigued by that icy white because of how blinding it was on the other side. So I want to add it to the inner corner, but I also sort of want to bring it up a little bit. All right, so we've got our pinky browns for the first 2 looks. Let me pop off camera. I'll pop on some mascara and I'll come back to show you the finished first 2 looks, and then we can get to playing with that purple. All right, so here are the finished first 2 looks, and I like them. I think they're both very pretty. I think they're easily looks I could get from any of my other NARS palettes, but I do think they're pretty, and I do think that the formulas are performing very well, definitely up to NARS's standard quality. I had absolutely no issues creating these looks. I found that they were really, really easy to work with, and I'm really enjoying them, as I always do. So let me take these off. I'm going to preserve the mascara so I don't have to do that again. But I will take these off, I'll come back, I'll create the third and final look, and then we can also try out that lip product before we get into some comparisons. All right, so getting into that final look, we are going to go in with that purple. I do love a purple. I always say that I am such a neutrals girl, but if I'm going to play with color, purple is one of my 3 safe colors. We've got purple, we've got pink, we've got green. I have purple and pink in here. So I am always excited to see a purple. And this one is very, very pretty. I did just reset my eyes the exact same way with my eyeshadow base and my powder. This is a really pretty soft purple, but it's not feeling quite as silky as the other shades for some reason. Swatch-wise, it's swatched perfectly fine, but I almost feel like it's blending a little bit patchy. I actually am going to switch brushes to see if that makes a difference. That actually does seem to make a little bit of a difference. I just switched from a BK Beauty brush to a Rephr, and that is making a little bit of a difference. I do feel like it is a tiny bit patchy right here, but I can't tell if that's from where I took it off and maybe I set my base down a little uneven. I'm not sure. Let's see how this eye goes. Yeah, I think this eye turned out quite a bit better. So I'm thinking it was more of an issue with my base. I'm thinking I just didn't blend it as evenly as I meant to. Okay, So I'm going to go into that middle shade now, and I'm going to take that one on a finger, and I'm just going to put this one all over the lid. I think this is really meant to be more of a softer, sort of more ethereal kind of purpley look. The shade kind of has like a pink to purple shift. I don't normally love those pinky purple blue leaning type shades because I find they can make me look tired, but this is a really nice shimmer. It's definitely a thinner formula. It almost reminds me of the Urban Decay Moon Dust, just in the sense that it's a very thin formula. It doesn't have a lot of base to it, and it doesn't enhance texture, and it has a nice amount of sparkle. I do think the Moon Dust shades are more sparkly. I did get a bit of fallout, but nothing crazy. I was thinking about adding a little bit of this shade to the outer corner because it did have almost a purpley kind of undertone to it, but I'm kind of liking this more light purple, sort of ethereal kind of look. I'm kind of comfortable to leave it that way. And when this shade is actually layered just on top of the purple, like when we get to the outer corner, it looks really pretty like that as well. I think next time I might actually just pack that purple all over the lid and then blend up into the crease and then put this on top. I think that would be really lovely as well. But for now, I'm content with that more lighter, more ethereal kind of look. I do just want to take a brush into that very white shade right here. I really like that shade. And put it on that inner corner and sort of bring that up a little bit. Okay, I like how that looks. I like how that came together. I don't necessarily love these more pinky purple blue kind of shades. I do find they can make me look a little tired. I think next time I would definitely consider just packing that purple, like I said, all over the lid and then blending the edges and then popping that shimmer on over top. I think I might like that a little bit more. So otherwise, I'm okay with how that came together, but let's try on the new Air Matte Ultra Lip Tint. So like I said, I have mine in Dolce Vita, and it just looks like this. It's a really pretty bottle. It is that soft touch matte that they often do, and it is frosted at the bottom where you have the shade. I do really like their Air Matte Liquid Lip, so I figured I would probably like this too. I think I might want a bit of a lip liner, so I'm gonna go in with the new Say liner that I got during the Sephora sale in the shade French. I do quite like this formula. It is a drier formula, but it's not an uncomfortably dry formula. Okay, so let's go into that lip tint. This is what the applicator looks like. Kind of an interesting shape. Okay. It smells good though. It kind of smells like vanilla. Okay, that's pretty. That's definitely a very lightweight, very comfortable formula. It does not feel like it's going to be too drying at all. It definitely feels more hydrating than the Air Matte Liquid Lip, but at the same time, I can definitely feel the similarities between the two. This one is definitely thinner and more lightweight though. I should also mention the lip tint does retail for $28, has a 24-month shelf life, and is made in Italy. But I actually really like the formula. It's a really soft tint, like it's supposed to be, but I definitely don't love it with this eye look, but I will leave it as is because I don't have anywhere to go. And I really, really like this lip, so I'm gonna leave it, but that is what the Air Matte Lip Tint looks like in Dolce Vita. So let me zoom you out and we can talk about some comparisons. All right, so this palette is really, really pretty. I do think I was able to create some really pretty looks. Like I said, I don't necessarily love this final look with the purple, so I want to keep trying it and playing with it so I can maybe come up with something I do like. But otherwise, the other shades all worked very, very well. I love this sparkly icy white at the top, and all of the other shades just played really well together. The mattes, like I said, just blend into one another as always. I love that about the NARS mattes. The satin shades worked very well also. The shimmers, beautiful. And these shimmers up here in particular really do remind me in a lot of ways of the Urban Decay Moon Dust, in the sense that they are a baked shadow. They don't have a ton of base to them, but they are quite sparkly, and they're a very thin formula. So I do really enjoy that as well. I do think the Urban Decay might be a bit more sparkly, but they remind me a lot of those. The mattes, like I said, some of my absolute favorites. What it comes down to though is the color story. NARS does tend to come out with the same color stories over and over again. We all know this, and I really don't know that this one is that different. If we were to essentially just cover up this purple, do we have a pretty common color story for NARS? Kinda. But I do still really love that they try to incorporate something new and fun and different. Now let's talk about some comparisons, because I do have a lot of NARS palettes. I'm not comparing every single one of them, but one I wanted to talk about was the NARS Afterglow Irresistible palette that was from last year. This one was released, I think, right around Christmas time, and this is what they look like side by side. And there are definite similarities here. The Afterglow Irresistible doesn't have the purples, of course, but the other shades do tend to be very similar. I'll pop up those swatches and you'll see I was able to get some very similar shades. So, I mean, if you have this, do you need the new one? Maybe not. I do think if that purple is really important to you, then maybe, but I really don't know that you need it. I also wanted to compare to last year's holiday palette. So this came out with the cheek palette last year. The Afterglow Irresistible came out right around Christmas. This one came out with the cheek palette. This one is pretty. This also had a pop of purple, definitely a different tone, but popping them up side by side, there are definitely some similarities. There are differences too, but we definitely have some similarities. Popping up the swatches, I think you can see, I mean, there's a lot of similarities there too. If you cover up the purple, you have a very similar palette. And because some of the differences are really just respect to the tone, they're not going to be all that different on the eyes. So that's just something I always like to keep in mind. I did pull out the Orgasm Rising palette. These weren't as similar either. I do think the Orgasm leans a little bit more warm. I do think these other palettes lean a little bit more warm. And then I did also pull out the Summer Unrated, which is my all-time favorite NARS palette. And there really wasn't a lot of similarities there either. Of course, there were some, but not enough that I thought it would be overly helpful to swatch them out. A palette from a different brand that I did think of, and it was all because of that random pop of purple, was the ABH Nouveau palette. So you can see they're both palettes that have some of these warmer browns, some of these deeper shades, and then a random pop of purple. So I will pop up some of those swatches, and you can see I didn't get identical shade for shade dupes, but I mean, if you have last year's NARS Holiday and the Nouveau, you could definitely skip the new one. Or if you have the Afterglow Irresistible and Nouveau, I mean, maybe you don't need this one at all. I think this is a really pretty palette. I really do. I don't think it's a need, but I do think the quality is otherwise good. The only struggle I really had was with the purple, and that I'm almost positive was more of an issue with my base, not actually the shadow. I do think it's a very pretty palette overall. I think it's a pretty color story. I think if you're wanting this one, I don't think you'll be disappointed in it. I do think you'll be able to get some solid everyday looks. I think you can definitely incorporate the purple. And like I said, I will absolutely keep playing with this and try out the purple in some different ways too, to see if there are ways that I like it better. I'm sure I will be able to do something like that. And I will, of course, share that with you. But otherwise, I think it's a very pretty palette. And do keep in mind that if you cover up that pop of purple, you have a pretty standard NARS palette. But I do think it's very pretty. And if you still want it, then I don't think you'll be disappointed at all in the quality. What I do really like though is the Air Matte Ultra Lip Tint. I love this. It's definitely dried down and I don't feel like it's going anywhere. With their Air Matte liquid lipstick, I feel like that is probably the least dry liquid lipstick I have. That one will rub off, whereas I feel like this one is actually going to be pretty budge proof. I think it's actually going to stick with me for a while, and I do think it's super, super pretty. I can see myself wearing this lip a lot. I do still love a good matte lip, but not one that's super dry. So I so far really, really like this. I have yet to be disappointed by a NARS lip product, truly. I really do always love their lip products, and it doesn't matter what formula, I do seem to love them all. So definitely love this. We'll definitely keep playing with it. Same with the palette. I like the lip product more than the palette, shockingly, but I do like both. I think they're both excellent products. If you want the palette, I don't think you'll be disappointed quality-wise, but you might not need it based on what you already have in your collection. So that is it for me today. Let me know down below if you're interested in this one. Are you thinking of picking it up? Let me know all of your thoughts. I love hearing from you guys so, so much. If you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go. I do upload new videos every single week. Thank you again so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!